Hello and welcome to step 3 in modifying the Wizibot code to do the line sensing. Okay. In this step, we will be adding in the start button. If you have not completed step number 1 and step number 2, then you will need to go back and complete those, as we will be modifying code from step 1 and step 2. Okay, so make sure that you've done those 2 steps before doing this video. In this video, it's a pretty straightforward one. We're just going to add in a start button. Okay. Now, the reason why we're going to do this is because, as you remember from the line sensing code from the previous step, we had it taking baseline readings off the desk. Okay, that's going to be the reflectance, the standard reflectance that's coming off the desk. If we're plugging a battery in, certainly when we've got the motors running, we're going to be plugging the battery in, and we may be holding that robot up away from the desk. That means that if we were to run the initialization then, it would not be initializing on the desk, it would be initializing in the air. Similarly, we may not have placed the robot exactly where we want it when we upload the code from a USB cable, for example. So the best thing for us to actually do is simply have a little button that we're going to press that starts that initialization and then starts the line following. So initially it's not going to do anything until we press that start button. Obviously, this also prevents the robot from driving away. It's quite good practice to do this type of stuff. Certainly if you're doing initialization or if you've got motors running and things like that. If you plug in the USB cable, you upload the code, and the first thing the robot does is drive off. It could immediately fall off the desk and obviously break. So having a start button, we've got 2 buttons on the shield, you might as well use them. So first up, I want you obviously to make a backup of the step 2 files, doing the save as method from the previous video. Once you've done that, I want you to make the following modifications to the code. I've split this over 2 slides, so we're just doing the modification for the first half of the code here. Make these modifications and resume the video. Once you've made these modifications, let's quickly just go through what we have done. Okay, we've defined our button pin for button B1 on the shield. That is in pin number 12 on the Arduino. We have then created a little variable. This little variable is simply going to remember, have we started yet or not? So have we detected that the button was pressed in a previous loop? Okay, we'll come back to that in the loop function. I'll show you how that works. Next thing that we do, we simply set the pin mode of the button. Now we're doing input pull up. You probably noticed this is a slight change from what we did last year on the Arduinos. Now our buttons on the shield are naturally going to be high on the signal. That's when they're not pressed. Okay, so the Arduino has a functionality called input pull up. That means it's going to be an input pin, but it's naturally going to pull it to high. In order to count as an input for low, we're going to have to press the button down and send it to ground. The shield has a connection on the button that goes to ground. Okay, so whenever we press the button down, it's actually going to be a low signal to indicate that it was pressed. I want you to make the further modifications to your loop function here. Once you've made these modifications, resume the video. Now that you've made these modifications, let's have a look at what we're doing. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is we're simply going to check, have we already started? We've got a little variable that remembers, it's either true or false. It's going to default as false. It's going to remember, have we already started this program, e.g. have we already pressed the button in the past? Okay. If we have not started, so we have not detected that the button was pressed, we're going to go into the following code. We're going to read the button B1. Now, because it's an input pull up on button B1, when we press the button down, it's going to go low. So that is why our digital read has a little not symbol in front of it, because not high is equal to low. Okay, so we're checking, is the button read low? If it is low, that indicates that somebody is pressing the button. We print out to the serial monitor to say starting the Wizibot, and then we call that initialize line sensors function. Now this is important. If you've not spotted it yet, okay, we have removed initialize line sensors out of the setup function. So go back, just check that you don't have initialize line sensors in your setup function. To be honest with you, if it is in there, it's not going to have a major impact. Okay, it's just redundant. We don't need it in there. So remove it from there. We're going to now place it inside of this button press. Once we have initialized the line sensors, we're simply going to remember that we've initialized, that we've started. Okay, so we're going to set has started to true. That means the next time this loop function is called, has started will be equal to true. It will not do this if statement, and it will go drop down into the sensor can see line, and it's going to actually start that line sensing process. You will notice right at the end of our if statement, just after the has started true, we have our return command. You can use return at any point where you want to immediately exit a function. It prevents any code below it from running. Okay, so it's essentially going to exit the function. That doesn't mean to say that loop will not call again. It's just returning this time. A loop will get called again by the Arduino. It will come in here. Has started will be true. it will drop out, it will miss all that if stuff, and it will go down into the sensor can see line. You can check the left line sensor, check the right line sensor, and resume the code that we did last week. Okay, so when you upload this code, what you should actually see from the very beginning is pretty much nothing. Okay, it's going to say that it's loading off the EEPROM just like it did with the setup. Okay, but you're going to have to press button B1 to start the process. So when you press button B1, you should see it say starting Wizibot, and then you should be able to see that it is sensing on the lines. If you place any heat shrink under the sensors before you press button B1, nothing should appear on your serial monitor. Okay, so it's not started until we press button B1. You may now move on to the next video.